Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Rising. Saagar, what are we doing today?
Oh, we've got a great show for everybody today. We've got climate activist Khadija Kokar, and then we have Julia Manchester from down at the Hill to talk about young voters in 2020. Of course, we have our panel talk about Pete Buttigieg's mystifying tweet and much more. All this coming up today on Rising.
All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, yesterday I outlined for all of you the pretty serious allegations of financial wrongdoing by Joe Biden's son Hunter with business dealings in Ukraine. I touched briefly on how Biden has been able to cite the latest press coverage of these serious events as the absence of any evidence of wrongdoing. It's a clear-cut example of the alliance between the powerful and the people tasked with holding them to account. I think that this has something to do with the media's Trump problem, which I also see as a really big problem for Democrats. The media and much of the Democratic base is united in its hatred of Trump, a hatred that generally runs to their very core. Ergo, if Trump or his supporters suggest something or declare something, it becomes the Dems' very mission in life to disprove or to poke holes in that statement to score a Pyrrhic victory of the soul. The problem is that while, yes, Trump says things that are true, are not true all the time, sometimes he says things that are very true, or he highlights stories that are beneficial to him and are also true. And in those cases, like this one, so many Democrats in the media lose their credibility and ultimately do themselves a disservice whenever they deny them. There are entire rooms of people in CNN and MSNBC right now trying to prove Hunter Biden is an innocent and brilliant entrepreneur who speaks fluent Ukrainian and Chinese. We all know that there was something fishy going on with Hunter's business dealings, but admitting it is something that they can simply not bring themselves to do. Perhaps no better example than this clip from Ali Velshi over at MSNBC yesterday.
President Trump has repeatedly suggested, without evidence, that Joe Biden used his VP position to pressure Ukraine to fire the country's top prosecutor, Viktor Shokin.
Velshi's claim was just completely false. Biden admits to using his political pressure to fire Shokin. He says that he was just doing it for the interests of the U.S. government and not his son's position as a board member on a Ukrainian energy company. I know that parsing these details is extremely tedious, but the media would do themselves quite a bit more favors to accurately report the situation today than to go back and revise whenever this becomes an even bigger thing if Biden becomes the nominee. I've also noticed that Democrats in the primary are very reluctant to talk about this. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders have made rooting out political corruption the near centerpieces of their campaign, and yet many of these supporters agree that it's an obvious nefarious business deal that needs to be investigated, and I doubt that we're going to hear anything from either candidate on this anytime soon. Too often, Democratic candidates are afraid of admitting the truth or using obvious future attack lines against their political opponents because they will believe that they sound too much like Trump. Trump did not get into the Oval Office by being a stupid man. Sometimes his political instincts are very good. The perfect example is Elizabeth Warren lying about her heritage. It's easy for those who support her to brush it off, but to millions of Americans who may eventually hear about her if she's the nominee, it demonstrates a known and a strange pattern of misrepresenting yourself, doubling down when caught, and ultimately refusing to grapple with just how much of a boondoggle that you've gotten yourself into. There is no question from the body of evidence available that she benefited tremendously from her fake heritage, and if it truly was an error, then she would have not clung so deeply to it over the many years when she was confronted about the issue. Yet, she has not had to answer for it once since she became a serious contender for the Democratic nomination. There has not been a single question posed about it at any of the party debates. Not one of her opponents has ever raised the issue. I rarely agree with Julian Castro, but he said it best at the last Democratic debate when Pete Buttigieg short-circuited over an original policy debate. Primary elections and debates are about hashing out who is best suited to carry a party's flag and who has the best ideas. Being afraid of sounding too much like Trump or reporting something that may be beneficial to him is a major weakness for the media. And Democratic candidates who see obvious misdeeds and wrongdoing but refuse to call it out are doing a large disservice to them and their supporters. And I think, Crystal, one of the main things that I see here is we all know Pocahontas is going to be the #1 attack line by Trump against Warren if she's a nominee. Why isn't a single one of her opponents talking about it? Same with Joe Biden. These things did not become something because there's nothing there. They didn't just get conjured and manufactured out of thin air. They're obvious problems, and yet we haven't heard a word.
Centrists love to play this like, we're all united and we're all so much more the same than we are different. And the reason why, I mean, this is a tactical play, is because if they're just like Elizabeth Warren or they're just like Bernie Sanders, then the shortfallings, the shortcomings of their own policy proposals and ideas don't get brought to light. So it benefits them to say, like, let's not attack each other. Let's just all sing Kumbaya. When, Julian Castro is absolutely right. This is what a primary fight is about. Yes, after we have a nominee, everyone will come together, and there is nothing that unites the Democratic Party more than the idea of defeating Trump. But if you want to do that, well, if you want to do that, you have to have aired all of these things in the primary. You have to have really tested these candidates and make sure that they can stand up to the pressure.
And it didn't used to be this way. You know, I went back, I watched some of the 1992 debates. Jerry Brown was on the same stage as Bill Clinton, calling out Bill Clinton for his wife's business dealings in an Arkansas law firm. That's legitimate. That's because, guess what? Whitewater became a thing that consumed this country for 2 years, and it was probably a good thing that they heard about it in the primary.
I do love the phrase, though, Pyrrhic victory of the soul. So well done there, sir.
Thank you. I try and turn a phrase
it was
every
inspired.
once in a while.